Warm up those vocal cords, Bill Landis. It's Talkin' Tuesday.
Have to sing?
Yeah, well, you can if you want. I'll give you some bonus points if you'll sing a question to Ryan Day later on today, Tuesday, in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
I absolutely will not.
Okay. Well, I'll try and figure out something to spicing up the action for you. Welcome back to the Podcast Daily. He, of course, is Bill Landis, and I'm Austin Ward, and Ryan Day and Jim Knowles will be back to update us on game number 11. Has this year gone fast to you? I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. Like I don't know why it didn't hit me until last week, and I was like, oh my god, there's 2 weeks until the Michigan game. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like last year that season took forever, and this one I'm like, didn't they just play Notre Dame?
Yeah.
How are we at this point? Anyway.
I mean, I like it. I also hate it.
We're almost out of games.
I know, yeah. So soon enough, we'll be sitting here on February Monday wondering what the heck we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the NFL draft. No, I can't wait for that. Oh, the Combine in February. Oh, no, even worse. Maybe that's what we can ask Ryan Day. Hey, has this year gone really fast to you, or did the compliance and the accusations from Michigan really ruin your week last week?
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, that's not a question for the press conference, but what is? What's tickling your brain, Phil?
So we got to figure out what's up with Lathan Ransom, right? The initial prognosis there seemed optimistic that he would be back, if not this week, then like by the game. And even if that was the most optimistic you could possibly be, that opportunity was still out there, or at least the hope was still out there. And it does just kind of seem like that's trending in a bad way. I know you texted out to our text subscribers that Lathan was on a scooter in the warm-ups before the Michigan State game, and Ryan Day afterward put a timeline on it of long term, which was kind of the first time he's done that. And I guess it's twofold, like, right, what's up? And then two is, well, what's the impact of that? Do Ryan Day and Jim Knowles both feel like they're in a good place with the way that Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock have played at Bandit and Nickel, respectively, the last couple of weeks without Lathan, to feel confident going into, certainly this week against Minnesota, but obviously we're more focused on, we are, not Ohio State, are more focused on what's going to happen in 2 weeks up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and I think to dip in a little to the Ryan Day vocabulary and lexicon, long-term almost always, but not exclusively, means season ending.
Yep.
It appears, based on what we've heard, that this did require a medical procedure for Lathan Ransom. I can't sit here and say definitively what that timeline would be. I know that there are people in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center who are, when I'm like, could Lathan be back? They viewed that as more of an NFL decision than being back for the playoff.
Yeah.
The way that they answered the question changed dramatically from 1 week to the next. So I'm not going to make predictions. I don't know what's going to happen in 4 or 5 weeks' time, but I don't expect to see Lathan. Definitely not against Minnesota. I think it's highly unlikely that that's going to happen against Michigan. And a Big Ten championship game, that seems like a stretch as well. Again, I don't know what an actual timeline is, but I don't think Ohio State can prepare for the next 2 weeks that they're guaranteed counting on Lathan Ransom.
Yeah, it feels like at the very least it's been extended from whatever it was when the injury initially happened. And that happens. Like, guys get reevaluated. You decide, like, surgery, not surgery, recovery time, all that stuff. Like, I'm not totally surprised that it's gotten to this point, only because, like, it was a weird non-contact injury. And when you see stuff like that, you fear for the worst. And we still don't really know what it is. But that we're here is not ultimately surprising. But now it's like we're here. So now, where does Ohio State go without a very important piece of their defense as they're trying to win a national championship?
Did you feel like Saturday was a step forward for Malik?
Yes, I did. I thought he played really well. He had there was like one play I thought really like kind of rushed up the field and missed a tackle, but then I thought he settled in after that. They did the thing that I was hopeful they would do when I talked about in pregame keys, is like, don't pull him out of the game when he makes a mistake on the first or second drive. Let him play through it. Let him get the speed of the game and find a little bit of a rhythm. And I thought they did that. He was pretty close to getting an interception in that game too, and he played the run well. He stopped the pass to the flat well. So I feel a little more encouraged by what he could do if called upon. Although I think we're probably going to see Josh Proctor back out there, right? That felt like the more along the lines of we could play him if we wanted to, but we're not going to kind of deals. Mm-hmm. But it's good to see from Malik Hartford. But I think they're okay with Josh Proctor and Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock. The one thing, and Burm asked Jim Knowles this last week, I think, maybe he asked Ryan Day, he asked one of them. about Sonny Styles playing closer to the line of scrimmage, because I think a lot of people who watch Sonny play think he just looks more comfortable there, and this position that he's in now requires him to play back. Not all the time. He still plays down. We know Lathan's a great run stopper, but is there anything they can do to make sure that it's Sonny who's playing in the box more often than it is Jordan Hancock, who is fine down there too? But I would rather have Sonny, who's like a third linebacker at times down there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the run stopping portion, I think having Josh Proctor's physicality is a plus for that too. I mean, we know that Sonny can match up just about anywhere on the field, and Jordan Hancock has been, good about everything. I mean, he's such a versatile defender. So it's interesting because, I think really highly, so do you, of Lathan Ransom and his potential as an NFL player and in moving to the next level. And it's like, I would be, if you told me a month ago, what would the concern level be for Ohio State to play the game without Lathan Ransom? Like, ooh, that's not very good. Yeah. And now, I feel like, well, maybe they'll be fine and they can stop the run. And J.J. McCarthy's not as much of a threat to throw as people think, and maybe they'll get through that. They've done Malik Hartford's emergence is part of that. The ability to have Jermaine Matthews step up and help at corner is a part of that. Even, Calvin Simpson-Hunt getting reps. Like all these, it seems like they keep turning over the next man up thing. You can use that as a mantra all you want, but generally they are behind in line for a reason. They've kept this thing moving even while dealing with injuries, which has been really impressive. And not having 3 starters for a game in the secondary would have been absolutely debilitating a year ago, and now it's not. It's like, all right, no big deal, on to the next one.
It's weird what happens when you have carryover with your secondary coaches when they're around.
Remarkable.
For more than 1 year. Yeah, I think Perry Eliano and Tim Walton both have done a good job getting their entire rooms ready. So maybe you do notice a little bit of a drop-off here and there, like play-to-play perhaps, but there have been times in the past it was like, yep, that guy's not supposed to be out there. And I've not really felt that at any point this year. Not even earlier in the year when Malik Hartford got a spot start and got pulled from that game early. I kind of thought that was a quick hook. And otherwise, I think everyone who's been called upon has performed incredibly well.
All right, so that's a twofer right there, looking at the safeties and an injury situation.
So are you with me on center? What's the dialogue we're trying to open here on the center position?
Well, yes, and kind of no.
I don't want to be alarmist.
So,
or I'm not trying to come off as fabricating a story out of nothing.
I think I am concerned about it. And, well, I know I am. Do I think that Justin Fry and Ryan Day are going to approach the penultimate week of the regular season and be like, you know what? Now that's it. We've gone with the same starting lineup for 10 weeks. After people asked, in the middle of October, could they make a change? They said there's no way. The top 5 personnel are entrenched, and they rode with that. Since then, and we always have to put this disclaimer out there, PFF does not know every responsibility. Their grades must be taken with a grain of salt. I do think that they illustrate a point. And their grades of 3 out of the last 4 weeks, Carson Hinsman under 50, that's alarming because it matches up with what I'm seeing, which are struggles. Like we'd said on Saturday, Bill, we're in the press box. Like, was that the first time that he's had an errant snap all year? And I was like, I think I can only remember maybe one other, maybe, not one that rolled around 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So that part of your brain goes, well, he's been consistent with the snapping. He's developed that relationship with Kyle McCord. Maybe they don't make a change. And then they put Matthew Jones at center for 10 snaps in the second half, and I was like, maybe they do think that has to be considered. Maybe they do.
It's the Matthew Jones piece to me that is worth asking about. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's never played center before last week, right? We always thought he would. He was recruited as a center, just stuck at guard, and he's been a very good guard. And they kept all the other starters out there. It wasn't like, we're going to get a blowout game like that. You want to get Enoch Vamahi some run, a good program guy. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, all about that. But he played with all the other starters,
and they didn't put Jacob James in there. Right, they put Matthew Jones.
They moved Matthew Jones from right guard to center, and then left everyone else the same and put Enoch Vamahi at right guard. They could have just kept Carson Hinsman in there and put Enoch Vamahi at right guard. They didn't do that.
Also could have done that.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me. I want to make sure I ask about it in the right way because I don't think it's, hey, are you going to bench Carson Hinsman going into the Minnesota game when he got Michigan coming in 2 weeks? That I I don't think that's it. But is there a way to get at whatever their thought process is about Carson Hinsman? Because I think you laid out right with the way they use PFF grades, especially for offensive linemen. They can be informative only if you're kind of using your eyes first, right? Sometimes I look at them and like, that's not what I saw. Or other times I look at them like, yeah, that's more or less what I saw. And that's been the case, I think, with Carson Hinsman the last few weeks. He's given up a lot of pressures. He's not given up any sacks, but he's given up a lot of pressures, and I think the most hurries of anyone on the team, and a handful of hits on Kyle McCord. I don't think his run blocking when he has to like move a defensive lineman by himself is great, because he's just kind of a smaller guy, and I think he's still developing the strength that he needs to play at this level. And Burn made the point when we talked about this on the Daily on Monday, like, you know, he is a redshirt freshman. He's not played a lot. Of course, he has some development to do. If Michigan wasn't so good at defensive tackle, maybe I wouldn't be thinking about it, but they are. They're excellent at defensive tackle. It's probably where they're best. And it just worries me, and I wonder if it worries them, because the idea of Matthew Jones playing in that game, like, it didn't feel random. They could have played Jacob James. Vic Cutler did end up coming in and took some snaps after Matthew Jones when the entire twos were in there on the offensive line. Like, that was deliberate, and I want to know why. Is it more about shoring up depth, or is it more about like, hey, let's see what this looks like because we think we might need to go to it at some point?
So I didn't think, when all this conversation was coming up about the offensive line in the first or second week of October, not only did I not think that they were going to make changes, but I also didn't think they were necessary. I thought they were going to continue to grow. I thought that the chemistry, the cohesion, the communication, all that was growing, and they deserved the opportunity to let that play out. I didn't think that was a wrong decision at the time. So I can't go back and use revisionist history and hindsight to change that. But and maybe it's just because you look at the last 4 games and something has happened, it's regression or hitting the wall, whatever. I don't think it changes anything for Carson Hinsman's future. But and maybe it is because I watched Michigan and Penn State and I saw Kenneth Grant doing things that like are terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, he is a very good defensive tackle. And then I went and watched Ohio State struggle in the middle of the offensive line at times. Again, putting it in perspective, they did all the things that they wanted to do. They ran the ball well. They passed very efficiently.
Yeah. McCord wasn't sacked in that game.
So, you know, I don't want to make it into some sort of deal-breaking Achilles heel for Ohio State. But if you use the hindsight, I think the question has to be asked, like, why did you not try this particular experiment 5 weeks ago, and now you are in the last opportunity before the game? And so if you think that that's a possibility, Matthew Jones, maybe you don't think he needs all that time. Maybe he doesn't need the reps. Maybe he already has the chemistry with guys. Maybe he can make all those goals. I don't know, but like, they didn't feel they had to do it a month ago. I understood. Don't you feel like maybe this week you owe it to yourself to make sure that you've checked under every possible rock to get ready for the most important game of the year?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. And maybe they still feel that practice tape and everything else trumps it, and that's what they're most comfortable with. Maybe that's Carson Hinsman. Maybe that's, Enoch Vamahi or Tegra Shavola. Like, maybe that's just clearly that's what they've decided for 10 weeks. But to your point, it can't have been an accident. It's like, oh, let's try Matthew Jones right now at the end of the Michigan State game.
Yeah, it's just, had Matthew Jones played center at any point prior to that, maybe I'd think less about it. And it's especially poignant for me because I asked Justin Fry about this in like March or May, maybe, whenever we had that assistant coach day after spring football, like
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, I've been asking it since Matthew Jones was a junior in high school. Would you think about putting Matt at center and then playing either Enoch or Tegra at guard? Like, that to me was the surefire way to get to your best 5 offensive linemen. And like, obviously there's a lot of tackle conversation happening there too, but to me it felt like a no-brainer. Like, and I'm just a guy who's watching football and has opinions. Many of them are wrong.
Mm-hmm. I'm not agreeing to the last part. I'm just saying.
No,
I was agreeing to the guy
fine
with an opinions part.
Yeah. So I don't like if they're finally coming around to that thought process now. Like, I find that annoying. I think so. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think there is. Matthew Jones has played a lot of football. So, like, the adjustment for him to move is probably not that great. But if you're considering any kind of shuffling of the deck, then you're putting that right guard, whether it's Enoch Vamahi, who's been around a long time but still not played a ton, or Tegra Shabola, who played 4 games last year and redshirted, in a tough spot. So that's probably why they're not going to do it. But I don't know. I can come to no other conclusion that they're like at least considering the possibilities of what that could potentially look like if there's any other qualifier I can put on there.
Yeah, I mean, because at this point, you have no other option. You cannot just make that move next Monday and then put them out there on the road against one of the best defenses in the country, whether they know your signals or not. That's still what they are. And those defensive tackles are the real deal. That's not a winnable situation. So I think all this time that they talk about, personnel, coaching, scheme, fundamentals, finding the things that are right, like the end result, all of that falls under the category of what puts Ohio State in the best position to win. And if they don't at least, and I'm not suggesting that they for 10 weeks ignored it completely and weren't considering it. Every single day they're evaluating practice tape in addition to the game. Like,
yeah, I think also, too, you want to give a player who's at the stage where Carson Hinzman is in his career, like, runway to improve, right? Yeah.
And I think that's the part that's changed for me. I thought he was doing that through the middle of the season. And then I said, there's some misses going on there. It's not perfect. Maybe it's Wisconsin. Maybe it's the grind of the season. Like, not everything has to be perfect in the growth process, but once you get to 3 out of 4, that becomes like trend territory.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the way he played so up and down on Saturday, that cemented in their mind, maybe this is something that can't get dramatically better by the end of the year. Maybe we have to consider something else. And that doesn't mean that they will change their mind or change the lineup, but they got some new information at least.
Yeah. I wondered, I thought the way that, and we're probably maybe making too much of this, or at least I am. After the Wisconsin game, Ryan Day was asked about a play early in that game where he thought everything about the play was perfectly designed and schemed up for it to be a big hit, except for the fact that Carson Hinzman snapped the ball at Kyle McCord's feet. And Kyle had to bend over and pick the ball up, and by the time he did that, there was a guy in his face and he couldn't see where the pressure was coming from. And I thought the way that Ryan Day talked about that play was interesting because he did seem to, he didn't say, this was Carson Hinzman's fault, but he was hyper-fixated on the snap of breaking down that play. And then, the play has been inconsistent enough sort of in between. They had that bad snap against Michigan State. Those are, just mistakes you can't afford.
No.
When you're trying to beat Michigan and trying to win a Big Ten championship and trying to get a national championship. So, because regardless of what you think of Ohio State's ability to win a national championship, they're alive for one, so they're going to try to win it.
That's such a weird thing to say about the team that's number one in the country.
Yeah, and they think they can do it. And I'm not talking to Ohio State fans. I'm talking more to the national discourse.
Well, they're not going to listen.
Yeah, they're not. They all listen to the show. They're all very riveted by this 15 minutes of center talk. It's
look what you've done to me.
Yeah, well, listen, they've piqued my curiosity with offensive line moves. So what did you think was going to happen?
Now I actually watch offensive line play. Used to be, I was such a simpleton. I'm just going to watch the quarterback and where the ball goes.
I saw you send out that text about Carson Hinzman on Monday morning, and I pumped my fist.
Yeah, you've done it. You've officially done it. And now I don't just talk exclusively about the one position that everybody else can look at. Maybe that's growth for me. What else is on your mind?
Whatever Kyle McCord ate for breakfast the morning of the Michigan State game, he should have that every day moving forward. It was just it looked like what we've been waiting to see, right? The fast start, pinpoint accuracy, great throws. He had 5 or 6 awesome throws, I thought, in that game. And we've just been waiting to see it, and if it's happening now, it's great. This is the time you want to see it. But
they weren't on air. Some of that was covered pretty well.
Yeah, the first touchdown to Marvin was a tremendous throw. Was that you're just playing Michigan State? You got on cool uniforms. You're feeling good about yourself, or did they land on something with preparation either during the week or day of? And I'm talking Ryan Day and Kyle McCord that allowed that to finally happen because clearly they need that to happen again.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what he chalks that up to. He was still talking on Saturday night as we left the Horseshoe about the footwork and finding the speed of the game. I think it is more of a collective effort. Having Cade Stover, having Emeka Egbuka trending back, teams not being able to just throw as many bodies as possible at Marvin, the creativity in the run game, all these things work together. It is not just as simple as, and I said this a few weeks ago, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down from Kyle McCord. He has the arm talent to make any throw that they could ever ask him to. And we've seen that. Was it inconsistent? Were there a few moments that he made a bad decision at Wisconsin, a bad throw at Rutgers? Yes, of course he did. That happens to every quarterback at every level, no matter how many starts, how much experience you have. Not every throw is going to be perfect. You can't have the turnovers. Like that's job number one at that position, to avoid that. But it's not like that was the first time that we saw him throw a receiver open or fit into a tight window or have confidence to throw, the 3rd and 7 slant, and put it on the numbers. That's all happened before. You want to see it more, but that also comes with time, over time. It also comes with good protection and having all your weapons available and not, having a walk-on tight end. With all due respect to Patrick Gerd, he's done a great job to fill a role. Having a Mackey Award candidate is a little different.
Yes.
And the defense treats it differently. They fear Cade Stover, and if it's a combination of his backups, they're going to put extra people on Marvin.
They sure are, yeah. And if they deem Emeka Egbuka to be a lesser version of himself, they'll probably do that as well. So you're right. It wasn't merely that Kyle McCord flipped the switch and started playing better. Like everyone around him, I think, played better. He wasn't pressured all that much. He wasn't sacked. The one time they kind of got after him, he made a great play to improvise and flip that shovel pass to Cade Stover. And you're right that we've seen throws like that all year. I just thought it was maybe the first time we've kind of seen them all in one game.
Yeah, no,
or all in one half of football.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah. So and a lot of it, if you like, we've all watched Kyle enough too to know what it looks like when his feet are good and he's dialed up to the right place. And there was just a lot of that. Like the one play where I felt like he didn't have his feet under him was when he slightly underthrew Marvin on the touchdown at the start of the second half. But otherwise, it was good processing. I thought he saw stuff really well, was getting the second and third reads, and just looked like a quarterback who had taken a step forward. And the thing I guess that can't happen now, or at least I hope for him doesn't happen now, is not even like a regression, but just you want to see him build on it now going against Minnesota. Like Minnesota's not a very good defense either. Maybe a little better in some ways than Michigan State, but they just got their butts handed to them by Purdue. This is not a good.
What the hell was that?
This is not a good football team that Ohio State's about to play here on Saturday. So there's an opportunity there for further growth and for Kyle McCord especially to go into Ann Arbor feeling like he's playing the best football that he's played this year, which I think is really important.
All right. Anything else? Jim Knowles? Got into Lathan, so that's probably
I think ask him about Lathan. Maybe an assessment of some of the younger guys who got into the game. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's a whole lot to take away from playing Michigan State. They're a really terrible offense. What they thought of Cody Simon in an extended role there. Malik Hartford for sure. Calvin Simpson-Hunt. I know Ryan Day singled that play out. What did Jim Knowles think of that? Like that kind of stuff. I don't think anything big picture with Jim Knowles coming off a game like that.
Yeah, hard. That's the only part that's hard to tell. Like you did say last week, Michigan State's got a bit of a pulse on defense, but don't expect anything else.
Yeah,
against the Silver Bullets.
Yeah, they delivered,
and they did not let us down. I don't know that Minnesota will be that different with what they've got going on at quarterback recently. How much? It seemed like maybe in the preseason you were a little bit enamored by what they had going on at quarterback. I think you bet on them in week 1.
The Greek rifle, Ethan Kaliakmanis. I was my interest was piqued.
Yeah,
I was like, huh. And they were talking a big game about him. PJ Fleck with his, his
you can't believe anything that man
his
says.
New facelift that he got last year was up at the podium at Big Ten Media Days, talking a big game, and then you know what? It's not been very good. So
he's a big fan of plastic surgery, isn't he? For reasons. We'll see. PJ Fleck and the Gophers on Saturday at 4:00. Not my favorite kickoff time in the world.
The worst kickoff time. Yeah,
and I feel for everybody having to manage that on Saturday that is going to the Horseshoe with us, but we will get through it. Because it's the last one in the Horseshoe this
Senior
year.
Day.
I cannot believe it. We'll talk more about that as the week goes on the Podcast Daily. Thanks for joining us on this Talking Tuesday. He's Bill Landis, and I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you later.